Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut and sew an halter neck jumpsuit. So this video was inspired by Adon by Doris from Instagram. So if this is something you like, please hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So here on my pattern paper, I've marked my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust and shoulder to waistline of this pattern. So this is the measurement that you need because we're going to cut the upper part. So now I'll mark my shoulder divided by 2, which is 7 inches. My shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2, I have 7. So I'll go down by 1 inch, and from here I'll be marking my shoulder slope down to the upper part of my pattern this way. Next is to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So after dividing mine, I have 7 inches. So I'll go ahead to measure what I have from my bust line down to that mark that I made, and mine was 1 inch. So everybody's own is not the same. Just go ahead to measure yours, and this is just to make sure I have a straight line at my chest line. Next, you want to go ahead to mark your bust circumference divided by 4 on your chest line, and you connect it to your shoulder. My bust circumference is 33 inches divided by 4. I have 8.3 approximately. So I'm going to divide my armhole into 2. Mine is 7 divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. So for my bust circumference, I'll connect it down to that 3.5 inches. So you don't need to connect it upwards because that won't be necessary. The next step is just to go ahead to mark your neckline. So for this pattern, I'm using the basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches. After I'm done doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to place my curved rule, and I'm going to rule this out. So now I'll just go ahead and outline my neckline this way. Next thing is to mark your dart. To mark your dart, you're going to measure your shoulder to bust line plus 1 inch. So after marking that, you're going to mark your nipple to nipple divided by 2. So after you're done marking that, go ahead to place your ruler, and you're going to connect all the way. So you're going to mark ½ inch on both sides, and you're going to connect. So this is applicable for everybody. After connecting your dart lines, the next step is just to go ahead to insert your body measurement. To insert your body measurement, place your tape at the bust and mark your bust circumference divided by 4, and go ahead to add your sewing allowance. At the under bust, mark your under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add your sewing allowance. At the waist, go ahead to mark your waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake and replace it, and also add your sewing allowance. So next, connect from the bust down to the under bust, and go ahead to connect it down to the waistline of your pattern. So next, we are going to go ahead to alter the neckline of this pattern. So to create an halter neck, I'm just going to place my tape at the top and mark 1 inch from my initial neckline, and I will connect it down. So normally you're supposed to connect this down to your chest line area, but because I don't want mine to be too low so that my armhole won't be that visible, I'll be going up by 1.5 inches from my chest line, which is my armhole area, and I'm going to go ahead to connect all the way from the upper part down to that part this way. But if you want yours to be the normal halter neck, you can just connect from that point down to your chest line. But this way, your armhole won't be too open, and I'll go ahead to connect. So I'm done drafting out this pattern. The next thing I'm going to do is just to go ahead to cut this out. So at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and if you have any question, please leave it at the comment section. So from what we have at the Instagram page that we got this video from, this dress is actually a backless halter neck dress. So how are we going to do this? We are just going to go ahead to fold our pattern starting from our new chest line or armhole point, and you're going to rule out about 1 or 1.5 inches for your zipper allowance. So for this pattern, I'm actually making it without a lining, but you can go ahead to make yours with a lining. So I'm just going to go ahead to trace what I have by the side, and I'll also go ahead to also trace out the lower part of this dress. So after I'm done cutting that, I'm done with this pattern for the upper part. So for the neckline of this dress, we'll be actually cutting that later. So to get rid of bulginess at the lower part of this dress, we are going to mark 1/2 inch and we are going to extend it all the way up. After you're done extending it, the next thing you're going to do is just to go ahead to cut it out. So after this, we are done drafting the upper part of this pattern and we are going to use this to cut it out. Now moving back to the lower part of this pattern. So this is the fabric that I am working with. It is just an Ankara fabric and I went ahead to measure about 1/2 inch on top, which will serve as the joining allowance. After that, I'll go ahead to mark the length of my trouser or the trouser part of the jumpsuit. So the length of my trouser is 40 inches, so that is from the waist down to the lower part of my trouser is 40 inches, but the total length of my jumpsuit is 57 inches. That is shoulder to the lower part. So measuring your trouser, you have to place your tape at your waist and you're going to measure all the way down. So after measuring and marking, the next thing is just to go ahead to add your folding allowance. So you can use 1.5 inches or 2 inches to do your turn up or folding allowance. So after you're done doing that, we're going to go ahead to place our tape and we're going to mark our hip point. So I'm using 10 inches. So when you're marking out a trouser, you can use 10 inches for your trouser length or for your trouser hip point, or you can just place your tape at your waist and measure to what you have at the hip, but 10 inches is okay. So after that, you're going to place your tape at the waist and you're going to measure down to your knee point, and my knee point is 21 inches. So next, you're going to go ahead to mark your hip circumference. So for this pattern, to fold your trouser, you're going to use your lap or your hip circumference plus about 5 to 7 inches. Why are you folding with this? Is because this pattern is actually a flay and you are going to have like a pleat in front of your trouser. Now going down to the waist, the measurement I used there was my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch, which is the sewing allowance. So remember why I used my hip circumference there, because we are going to create a pleat in front of this trouser and you can go ahead to use more if you like. So at the hip point, I'm also going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch. So when you're drawing out this trouser at the hip point, you're actually supposed to use more than your hip circumference if you want to achieve a very free jumpsuit, just like we have at the thumbnail. But for me, I don't think I'll be comfortable wearing a jumpsuit that is that big. So at this hip point, you're going to mark your hip circumference plus extra allowance, and whatever you use to fold your hip, that is what, let's say your hip is 40 divided by 4, you have 10 inches. So if you add extra 7 or 5 inches to your pattern, that's about 17 inches. So whatever you use at the hip, you also use at your waist point. So let's continue from where we stop. So because you're making a jumpsuit, you don't want to mark your crotch at that your hip point. You're going to go down by 2 inches. So this will help make your trouser or your jumpsuit to relax very well and not to be tight when you're sitting down. To avoid your trouser being very tight, so the next thing I'm going to do is to extend down my hip line, which is my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch at that line. So next, to mark your front crotch extension, mine is 2.5. So how do you get that? It's your hip circumference divided by 4. My hip is 40 divided by 4, I have 10. That 10 inches, I'm going to divide by 4. So that 10 inches divided by 4, I have 2.5. So go ahead to calculate and mark yours. So after that, I'll just draw my crotch curve and this is what I have. So next, you want to come down by 1 inch to draw or mark your thigh measurement. So for this trouser, we don't actually need our thigh measurement because it's a free jumpsuit or trouser. But if you're making a regular trouser, go ahead to do this. So for this particular trouser, normally you're supposed to fold your trouser, your hip circumference divided by 4 plus extra inches, maybe 8, 7, 5. totally depends on what you want to do, because this is actually a flare trouser. So for me, I folded my trouser with my hip circumference divided by 4 plus extra 4 inches. So you can also use your lap measurement divided by 4 plus extra 4 or 5 inches. This is a flare trouser. And then at the hip point, looking at what we have on the thumbnail, did not use her exact hip circumference divided by 4, and she added her sewing allowance. But for me, I use my exact hip circumference because I don't want mine to be too free at my hip. So I'm just going to take the measurement, the full measurement I use in folding the trouser, all the way down to the lower part of this trouser. And after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. But at the upper part, I'm going to extend it up and then slant it. That is that ½ inch we have at the upper part of this trouser. And after that, I'm just going to go ahead to cut. So please, if you have any question regarding this pattern drafting, please leave your question at the comment section. I don't know if I made sense at all, but if you have any question or if you're confused, please leave your question at the comment section.
She got my back, I'm happy that say everything I do is for my woman. Anything I talk, where you talk, I go do.
So after cutting that, now we're moving over to the back pattern of this trouser. So for the back pattern, I place the front on it this way. So in front of this trouser, I'll go ahead to mark 2 inches all the way. So you can also mark 2.5, but 2 inches is okay if you don't have so much butt. At my front crotch extension, I'll extend it outwards this way. So after that, I'll place my tape and I'm going to measure about 2 inches there. So you can use 2.5 inches or 3 inches if you have a very big butt. So I'm just going to go ahead to connect all the way down. So after I'm done connecting, at the upper part, I'm also going to come up by 2 inches. So you can use 2.5, 3 inches. This is just for your sitting allowance or your butt allowance. If you know that you're on the big size, just go ahead to use up to 2.5 inches or 3 inches at this point. So from this point, I'm just going to slant down. What I'm going to do is to place my tape and measure what I have on the waistline of the front pattern, which is 11 inches. So I'll go ahead and take down my tape and I'll place, starting from that point, make sure that is slanting down and the part touching the front part of my trouser is 11 inches. So why are you doing this? This is just to make sure that your waistline is actually the same. So after I'm done cutting that, I'm just going to go ahead to connect it. From that point, I'll raise the front part of my trouser up and I'll blend it down into the hip point of my trouser this way, all the way down. So after that, we are done connecting for the upper part of the trouser and we are moving down to the lower part. So now the next step is just to go ahead to extend what you have from here down to your knee point. So to my knee point side, I'm just going to come out by 1 inch, and from that point I'm just going to extend it all the way up, and I'll mark that 1 inch all the way to the lower part of the trouser. And after I'm done marking it, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out my trouser. So please, I have a second YouTube channel which is Draft with Maki, and we do drafting tutorials and pattern illustration. You can go ahead to check out my second channels for pattern illustrations too. So I have an excess on this part of my trouser which I went ahead to cut out, and I'll cut out the rest of my trouser this way. So I'm just going to go ahead to cut out this part of my trouser. So after cutting it out, I'll just trace out the front part a little so that it will blend with what I have at the back. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. So join us in the second part of this video where we'll be actually sewing this dress. And if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and join us in our next video. Thanks.